You know, Mike, they say Disneyland is a magical place. I'd have to agree. Have you ever been to any Disneyland?
I went to Disney World.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
It's weird. It kind of made me feel weird the first time I went there. Of course, I was pretty inebriated on multiple things, but it made me feel that sensation of like, wow, this really is a magical place.
It did.
It doesn't it?
It's because when I first went to Disney World, I didn't know what to expect. Like, I thought it was going to be an amusement park, like where you go on a bunch of rides, and I wasn't expecting it to be like everything is an experience. It's not really rides like you'd expect. It's like attractions. It's entertainment, and it was just a lot different than I thought. But it was really cool. I enjoyed the shit out of it. Like the Haunted Mansion was awesome. I got to go like a few months before they closed down the extraterrestrial experience. And I'm going to talk about that more later, but that was really fucking cool. And I got to do a bunch of shit there that like, it blew my mind, man. It was just so much crazy stuff that you wouldn't experience. And in a certain way, I think that it was better than when you go to like a Six Flags or something where you're going on all sorts of roller coasters and thrill rides. It's a lot different, and it was just a cool experience.
Yeah.
And they had a fucking Honey, I Shrunk the Kids thing that you could go. Oh no, that was at Hollywood Studios, but that's part of Disney. But it was awesome. You got to go. It was like a scale model of the backyard from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It was really fucking cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even as an adult, that place has that magical feeling. And like you said, everything's an experience. Even fucking throwing something in the trash, you can just see the light pole that's next to it and how it's decorated. And they just do everything up.
And that was a cool thing too about like, even if you had to like wait in a long line, like once you got into the area where the ride was, you know, it wasn't just standing in line. There was stuff going on. There was video monitors typically showing things to make the ride or the thing that you were in line for more of an experience. Yeah,
but it just makes me feel weird. And again, being older, you get the same feeling. If we went to Disneyland tomorrow, it would still have that same feeling. But it's just weird to sit back and look and just realize it takes just a little bit of flashing lights and glitz and glamour to make somebody feel like that. Us as a human being, just totally entranced. It's just like, yeah, paint everything bright colors. Make sure everything's super clean. People were like, whoa, this place is magic.
It is magic. Are you saying it's not magic?
No, I totally agree. I wonder if there's something else going on there because that feeling is so strong.
Well, I think that's the difference between Disneyland and Disney World is the history. Disneyland was the original one. That's where Walt Disney had his own fucking apartment. And there's just so much history and emotion and just everything that's gone on there. It's so much different. Like, I feel like, or Disneyland was like a project of love, but Disney World was kind of like, hey, we can make money off of this whole thing.
Ah.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Very interesting.
But it's like, so for instance, Disneyland is supposed to have the ghost of Walt Disney himself haunting the park.
And that's well known, right? That's urban legend around Disneyland.
He had an apartment that's over the fire station on Main Street in Disneyland. And he would go there after work or whatever, or after the park closed to get work done. He would also let his family stay there if they were going to be attending the park. But at night, people at the park would often see the light on from the window of the apartment, which would usually indicate that Walt Disney himself was in there working at at his desk that he had set up in his office. But after he died in 1966, no one entered the apartment. It stayed empty after that. And the only people that would go in would be employees at Disneyland. They would just go in to dust it, and then they'd close the door and leave it. So one night, one of the employees went up, and she was dusting everything, and she shut off the desk lamp in the office and went downstairs. Once she went outside, she noticed that the light from that desk lamp was on in the window. So she went back up, turned it off, came back downstairs, looked back up, and the light was on. So she was worried that maybe there was a short in the lamp, and she didn't want there to be a fire or anything. So she goes back up, unplugs the lamp, and then goes back down the street. And she just thinks, let me turn around and take a look up there. And she looks up there, and she said the light turned on as she looked up there, and it looked like the curtains pulled back, like someone was trying to look down into the street and see what was going on.
Oh, how creepy.
Yeah. But I guess that light is on every night. So if you go to Disneyland and look above the fire station, and there's going to be a light on in that window, and that's Walt Disney's desk lamp.
Now, do they just purposely leave it on all the time now, or is it just...
Yeah, I guess that's the thing now. Like, once it gets dark, someone will go turn it on.
Wow.
Yeah.
When I went there, I noticed that area above the fire station, it looked like an apartment. It looked a little bit separate than everything else there. It's interesting to hear that that's where his apartment was.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a lot of ghosts and things at Disneyland specifically. And some of them are kind of, they're centered on rides. So there's one called, they nickname it Mr. One Way. And it's a ghost who's apparently friendly. And he will appear in line as a living person. And he'll just be talking to the other patrons in line and just acting like a typical tourist. But the thing is, he takes different forms. So sometimes he is a grown man with red hair. Sometimes he's a little kid. And they interact with the other guests at the park until it becomes obvious that he's not from the time period. You know, something's off about him. But he will, once he's found out, he gets in the ride next to a cart where there's only one passenger, and he takes the extra seat, and it takes off. But when the ride comes back, he's not in the seat.
Dun, dun, dun. Now,
Yeah.
how often is that reported?
I don't know how often it's reported, but it's apparently reported enough times to be able to discern between the different shapes he takes.
Yeah, very
but
true.
He has the same MO. He hops on, and then before the ride's over, disappears.
Wow, I wonder how that's like for the person next to him. If they just don't see him at all.
Yeah,
or...
maybe it's just like the people that he was interacting with see him, but when he gets on, the person next to him doesn't see him. Because you'd have to think, if someone was sitting next to you and then they were just gone, be a little alarming.
Yeah.
You know, and then I think you would notice at what point they ceased to be sitting beside you, you know? Yeah. But Space Mountain apparently has another ghost, one named Disco Debbie.
Ooh, I like her already.
Yeah, Disco Debbie. But she was a former cast member who allegedly died while she was working at Space Mountain. And she's seen as a green glowing figure walking through Space Mountain.
Wow. You know, you think about all the weird stats that they have on Disneyland. You hear about weird shit like the team of feral cats that they release nightly on the grounds to keep the mice and rat population down.
Right.
I wonder how many morbid stats there are. I'm sure there's been plenty of people who've died in accidents on rides and shit like that, medical conditions and shit like that. But I wonder how many employees have died there. That's got to be something we can Google, right?
Yeah, I actually have looked it up before.
Oh,
to
yeah?
see how many reported deaths there were. And It's a lot less than you would think.
Really?
Yeah. And most of the deaths are related to health conditions that were not reported by the patrons.
Just couldn't handle the magic.
Too much magic and your heart goes...
I bet.
Yeah. Or there were also people that would have like spinal conditions that would go on rides and hurt their necks or whatever. But, you had a spinal condition and you got on this ride that says don't ride if you have a spinal condition. So it's kind of on you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But there are a lot of urban legends about people dying. And did you know that this is an urban legend, but I guess it's since been proven to be true, that in the 60s, the Pirates of the Caribbean ride used actual human skeletons for the pirates?
We talked about that in our very first, I don't know if it was an urban legend show, but there was some TV show that had a prop that was a real skeleton. I'm shocked to find out that happened at Disneyland too. That's fucked up.
Yeah, the reason was at the time they were using fake plastic skeletons, but they looked like fake plastic skeletons. So they got real skeletons from UCLA when the medical students were done with the cadavers that were there. They would give the skeletons away or sell them or whatever, I don't know. But Disney bought them and used them for the pirates. And they've since removed them, but there is a actual skull, an actual human skull that is still on the ride. No one will actually confirm, but it's believed by most people that there's a scene where there's skeleton pirates in like a bedroom and they're surrounded by treasure. And on the headboard of the bed is a skull and crossbones. And I guess that's the real human skull, is the one that's on the headboard.
That's got to be like a rumor or a guess, right?
Yeah, I don't know what that's based on, but it's believed by a lot of people. Like if you look into it, that's the one that's said to be the one that's still alive, the one that's still a actual human skull.
Backtracking a little bit, I looked it up. There's been 9 guests who have been killed on Disneyland attractions since the park's opening in 1955.
Yeah, see, it's not that many.
No, and it says all deaths, save the 2 most recent, were the result of guests who apparently ignored safety instructions and or defeated ride safety mechanisms.
Yeah, see, don't be dicks at amusement parks, guys. You could lose a finger, an arm, or your life.
Yep. And it took 9 years for the first death to occur. That's not bad.
Yeah, some snot-nosed kid has got to ruin it for everyone, Just don't stick your head underwater on It's a Small World, you dumb fuck. Speaking of It's a Small World, have you ever heard that urban legend?
No.
I don't know how true this is. This is most likely an urban legend. I have seen a picture of it, but the picture doesn't prove anything. It could literally be anything, anywhere. The story goes that on the It's a Small World ride, all of a sudden it stops, the lights all come up, and the employees order everyone that they have to get out, and they get escorted out of the ride. They have to walk out, and once they get out, there's rescue team and police officers waiting to come in. And apparently one of the parents, while they were walking out, was taking pictures to finish off the roll of film in her camera. And she got them developed, and she saw what looks like a body hanging from the rafters of It's a Small World. Ooh. And it was never reported what happened, why everyone was escorted off the ride at that point in time. There is a picture that exists, but it's literally just rafters. There's nothing to identify it as It's a Small World, the ride. It's just rafters, and you see a figure of some sort. It could be a doll. It could be a person. It could just be a bundle of cloth or a curtain or any number of things.
Mm-hmm.
But that's That's why I think it's probably more of an urban legend than anything. But especially with all the Disney related creepy pastas that are out there,
Yeah.
that could just be another one of those that kind of got taken seriously.
Now, for you, I have to ask.
Ask me.
If you were an employee at Disneyland, I mean, how easy would that be to just hang a sack of whatever up in the rafters of one ride, and one fucking guest sees it and takes a picture, and it starts a wildfire story like that? I mean, would you be doing that shit? I know I would.
I don't know.
All day,
Maybe
every
as
day.
a teenager. If I was working there as a teenager, I most definitely would have done a bunch of dumb shit, because I did a bunch of dumb shit. Like not like dangerous dumb shit or mean-spirited dumb shit, but just like, dumb shit for the sake of a laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Like just a quick aside, my first job was working at a gas station. And this was back in the day when they were still full service gas stations. I don't know if there are out your way or not, but we used to have them here, and we don't anymore. And but I used to work there when they were full service, so I was pumping people's gas. But I used to always fuck with the customers, and I would just find different ways to fuck around with them. Take someone's gas order, walk away, grab my head, and then just fall over and play dead.
Oh, that's fun and lighthearted. I used to do, well, not me. Okay, I used to work at a bong shop, and like all glorious bong shops, if you guys don't know, if you ask for an oil incense burner, they will sell you a crack pipe. So the that worked there used to take the tips of the crack pipe where you put it in your mouth, and he would literally drop his pants and stick it in his ass crack and just set it aside and wait for the first crackhead to come in to buy one and sell it to him. And he would do it.
Oh my God.
And he would do it to every single crackhead that would come in.
That's terrible.
Yeah. No left shoe pranks for us.
Yeah. I kept things all cheeky.
Nope, there was some poor crackhead that got fucking dysentery from my buddy's butt crack.
Well, that would mean that he had dysentery to begin with.
So I don't know how dysentery works. He just was eating my friend's poo-poo then. I mean, it was visibly...
Maybe he wasn't eating it. Maybe he was just, lightly rubbing it on his lips like a gloss.
He was a very gentile crackhead.
Maybe. Who's to say?
I'm sure it didn't smell too good while he put it up to his face, though. At least.
I'm sure that was the least of his concerns at that point. He's getting ready to smoke crack. You think he cares about a whiff of fart? I certainly don't. Oh, I do declare my crack pipe smells like fart, he says with his pinky extended and his monocle in his eye.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I don't know what this has to do with ghosts at Disney World, but...
Who knows?
Yeah, I lost track of that, but... Crackhead sucking farts,
Takes precedence over our main subject for the evening.
Yeah, can we just have a call-in show where we talk about crackheads sucking farts? And just take calls from either crackheads or people that have made crackheads suck farts. And I want to hear both sides of the story. Maybe we can set up for a future episode where we have crackhead and people that make them suck their farts debate. Jerry Springer style.
Yeah, sucking crack farts with the Whatcast.
Yeah. No, that's a humdinger if I've ever heard one.
Crack
farts. Speaking of crack, have you ever been to the Haunted Mansion? I say that knowing that you have. All right. So, the ballroom scene?
Mm-hmm.
There's a large spider on the glass right before you pass into the attic. Are you familiar with this?
Somewhat. I may have been a little inebriated while I was on that ride.
So this spider was actually in the 70s, some dude was on the ride with a gun for some reason, and he shot it at the glass, and the glass is bulletproof. So the glass didn't shatter, but the bullet did puncture it. So after looking into the cost to repair it, they decided that it would cost too much and take too much time. They'd have to close the ride down. They just didn't want to do it. So rather than replace the glass, they just covered it with a spider.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's tricky Disneyland folks in their movie
yeah.
magic.
A little behind the scenes action for you there. But the Haunted Mansion itself is the site of quite a few kind of weird things that go on. For one, a lot of people have been caught dumping ashes in the Haunted Mansion. So there's bound to be human corpse particulate all over that place, like real human corpses. But when they catch people doing it, they vacuum up the ashes and unceremoniously throw them in the garbage.
Yeah,
so,
what did they think was going to happen? Somebody's going to clean that shit up.
So if you want your family members' remains to be thrown in the garbage at Disney World, then I suggest you just dump them in the garbage at Disney World and save some poor schlub the hassle of having to clean up after you because you wanted to dump their ashes in the Haunted Mansion. Because wouldn't it be so cool to dump the remains in the Haunted Mansion because it's haunted and they're dead and oh my god. Fuck off, you're causing someone else work. Stop being a dick.
I wonder if they got to call like a hazmat team or something like that because it's human remains, right?
I don't think so because it's ashes. Who's to say what it is really, you know? It's ashes.
All the herpes have been burnt off.
Yeah. But there's a story of a woman who tried to, she dumped some of her dead son's ashes on the ride, and he died when he was a boy, but he really liked the ride, so she wanted to leave a part of him with the ride. But apparently, the little boy didn't want that to be his final resting place, and people report that sometimes as you exit the ride, you can hear the little boy crying.
Oh.
Now, that could just be coincidence. I mean, you're at an amusement park and you're exiting the ride. Who's to say that there isn't just a little kid a little further down the line crying because he got freaked out? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's part of the soundtrack. See, some of these, it's just... I think a lot of these things just kind of take on urban legend status and just kind of end up being taken as a real ghost story. Like, oh, I've got a cousin whose best friend worked there one summer, and she told my cousin all about this crying baby ghost thing at the end of the line, or the disappearing red-haired man/kid on Space Mountain boogieing down with Disco Debbie.
Yeah, that place is just crawling with urban legends and stories. So much so that even last time I was there as an adult, I kept my eye out for something weird to happen, notice something strange. So, I mean, I'm not the only one. I mean, at least half the people that go there know about the odd stories behind Disneyland.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stories about people dying. Like for instance, in the Haunted Mansion again, there's a rumor that's never been confirmed. It's actually been denied by Disney, but it continues to be told. But before the Haunted Mansion opened, which it opened in 1969, but before it opened, it said that they let some guests try the ride, like as a test run. And they got so freaked out that they died of a heart attack on the ride.
Ooh, an opening day.
But that's the thing. It's not a scary ride. It's a cool, like the effects they do are cool and everything, but it's not like a ghost jumping out and scaring you type of ride. It's an experience. You go through the mansion and you see the ghosts all around, and you know it's all just like a spectacle of what they're capable of doing while you're right there, showing you all these like 3D ghosts that look like they're really there. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I never found it to be scary. I didn't think it was scary going into it. It's more of a spectacle of animation and technology as far as graphics and shit goes.
Yeah, Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that goes into that. But I think because of what it is, a lot of people, come up with ghost stories surrounding it or feel the need to dump their ashes. Like there was another time when it was at closing time, and one of the cast members found dirt in the graveyard, which is the graveyard seen as you're waiting in line to get on the ride. And they found some dirt in the graveyard had been disturbed, so they went to check it out. And they found an empty urn engraved with, it said, "Rest in peace, our dearest Grandma Joyce." And so they brought it to the video surveillance room, but then they ended up setting up like a makeshift shrine to Grandma Joyce on the catwalk of the ride.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a somewhat popular ghost video that came out of Disneyland in 2015. Have you ever seen it? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's the one where it's like this light anomaly walking. What did you think about that video? Because I've always found it very impressive.
Yeah, it's weird, and if it's authentic, I really don't know how to explain it. But I don't know if it's actually something that's authentic or not.
Yeah, just like every other ghost video, when you find that.
That's the thing. Yeah, if it's online, you can't really trust it.
Yeah, it's all, there's right underneath it is a video that says debunked, so.
Yeah, and then right below that is reasons why the debunked video is bullshit and the ghost is real. And then, it goes back and forth the whole time. And both sides are right, both sides are wrong. And if you think otherwise, then you're a fucking moron. Look at the evidence. Says both sides. Yeah, it's weird. But yeah, it's an interesting piece of footage. And like I said, if it's real, it's very impressive. But I also think that that's the one where you actually see it go through walls and shit, right?
Or gate?
Yeah. Doors or something, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's really clearly a person walking. If you guys haven't seen this, it looks too good to be true, but it's just as shitty as the background, like the rest of the background.
Yeah.
It's people
and
filming.
The only thing that I can think of would be if they took the surveillance footage of nothing happening, and then they took surveillance footage of someone walking and just kind of superimposed one over the other, but faded the person a little bit.
Yeah, it could be. It's possible. The one thing I like about that video is that the video is of somebody filming the security camera monitor. So, I mean, for me, it's...
Yeah, but just because it's filming a monitor, I mean, who knows what that monitor is hooked up to.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
I mean, you can say that's... And for some people, that would be good enough. It's like, well, he's showing him watching right there. But he's not showing you what that security monitor is hooked up to. So, it could have been a video shot as like a prank for somebody as they're showing them this thing and they wanted to capture it on video as they're showing it or something. I don't know. So, I mean, there's using really basic video editing equipment. It's very easy to superimpose something over another thing and make it fade so that it's kind of see-through. I remember doing that type of thing in like 5th grade. We had or maybe it was 6th grade, I don't know, but we had a video studio in my elementary school. It was just a little small thing, but it was very, very simple and easy to use. But, even at that age, we were able to do things like make people disappear, like make them look like they're fading out of existence.
Wow.
And so if you took the way that you would do it is you would take the surveillance video, you would take the video of no one walking through, and then you'd have someone walking that same route. But then they'd obviously, when they come to the door, they'd have to open the door. But if you fade one video, superimpose that video over the video of no one, the blank video, so to speak, and you just fade the person walking so that you just see the faintest hint of details, then it's going to look like they're walking through the walls and like that there's this transparent figure that's walking the grounds.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I think that to get the final result of the video, I think it would take a lot more sophistication than that. I think this is green screen quality type shit if it is fake.
Yeah, see, I don't think it would need to be, because especially if you're using surveillance footage from the same cameras, the only difference is that there's a person, and you fade them out so much that you don't need the details, so you just have this transparent figure. It really doesn't seem like it would be that much.
Yeah, that's the damnedest thing about any type of paranormal footage. The best and easiest footage that you'd want to edit is shitty, grainy footage.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. God, it really sucks losing the magic of believing in all this stuff, man. Like, it was so much more fun back in the day when I would see this video and I would lose my shit. Like, oh my God, how can you refute that? Look at that. I mean, it really, for long-time listeners, I'm sure they have noticed a change in the way that I approach things from the beginning. Like, when we first started this show, I was still like balls deep into the paranormal thing, and UFOs are aliens and ghosts are real. And then I joined evil time traveling Barack Obama, and I've seen the way of Joe Nickel, and I also believe it's all barn owls and kangaroos, as is evidenced by our recent episode.
Yeah, but seriously, doing all the research for the show, I mean, sometimes we dig deep and you find some things that just totally destroy the magic of certain subjects.
Well, I feel like that's the way it is for a lot of things. Like, that's how it was for religion. You do enough research on religion and the origins of religion and things that came before modern religion, and you start to see things repeat themselves, and you start to see themes showing up again and again, and it makes things harder to believe when you're seeing all of the things that came before it. Like, and the same, from religion, the same goes for UFOs, the same goes for ghosts. You look into it enough and you start to see where things just kind of match up, where it's not what it seems. And I always tend to play the role of open-minded skeptic, but there are phenomena that occur that are undeniable, and I think to just discount it completely because one person says it's an alien and one person says it's a demon and one person says it's a ghost, I don't think that you're doing a service to science by discounting it wholesale. I think the issue is where it's trying to be categorized. Like, is this an alien? And that's where things become kind of silly, because no one wants to be the guy who's really doing scientific work on whether or not this is an alien. But if we're looking at this phenomena like haunting or mysterious lights in the sky that don't correspond with any aircraft that we're aware of, and to just say no, that didn't happen, that's kind of goes against the whole thing of science. You can't prove it, but we're getting enough people sharing this phenomenon in different locations, different walks of life, different cultural backgrounds, different religious backgrounds, and they're all experiencing similar things. I think that deserves a deeper look. You can't just say every person that's experiencing this is piggybacking off the people that came before. But I can understand the hesitation saying, no, these people aren't being haunted, or no, these people aren't being abducted by aliens. But something is happening, and I think that's what needs to be looked into.
Now, this might be a little bit off subject, but you can throw ghosts and hauntings into this mix too. We always talk about how there's this big push, this new wave that's generating about disclosure. And we've been waiting for it, doing the show for 5 years. Since we started doing the show, there's been this talk of this disclosure that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Let's put that aside. Let's forget.
Do we have to?
We do. For the sake of this question to
Way
you.
to be a wet blanket.
With the way things are now, with the way society's going, with all these movements that are going on in every spectrum of life, they can't really say that it didn't happen anymore. And they don't. They just don't comment on it. Do you think that the way society is now is going to force some type of disclosure, not the government just giving in?
No. And for one, you would need something to disclose. So if these things that we're dealing with are not aliens, if it's not even something that we have an idea of, so what I mean by that is we're ascribing the label of alien to them. But like we've said in the past, there's also the similarities with fairy lore from the Middle Ages. And it just seems to kind of be, aliens seem to kind of be an update on that idea.
It's just like they live, dude. Everybody calls them aliens. In a movie, they clearly say interdimensional travelers, interdimensional beings.
Well, and that, like the fairy realm. You'll get pulled into the fairy realm, which for all intents and purposes is a different dimensional thing. So I don't think that they have anything to disclose. I think that they want us to think that they have something to disclose. I think that there's a lot to be gained by that idea, especially in terms of security. If you can create the deniability, like people seeing crazy aircraft and calling it UFOs, but that's easily discredited because aliens are silly. It's ridiculous. You can't see UFOs and aliens. So it's this person's either crazy or they misidentified Venus or the moon or it was ball lightning. And I think that by allowing the idea of UFOs to creep in, it provides enough cover. And that's why we see things where we see things like the Paul Bennewitz case, where the government uses disinformation in the form of, I guess, a false disclosure. So if you think about it, a lot of the things that we have in modern UFO lore, a lot of the eyewitnesses that we have that come forth from the government, they're all lower level guys for the most part. And I'm not talking the ones that have had sightings. I'm talking the ones that are coming in saying they had a hand in protecting a crashed disc, or you know, the people that come out and they're like Richard Doty, for instance, how for the longest time he was pushing this thing that there was a war going on between the military and the aliens, and we're shooting down their stuff and we had to be prepared and all. And a lot of the stuff he was putting out, people were taking as disclosure. But then he came forward and admitted that he had been an agent the whole time. And you've got a lot of guys like this that come out that are military guys. None of them are super high-ranking officials, but they will typically have some sort of security clearance to kind of back their claim. And or you'll have people that are coming forward saying they were part of some government task force that was sent to a crash site to recover bodies or recover craft. And there's tons of books out there with eyewitnesses of that caliber. And even Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project, that was something that I was really excited about. But after learning about the Paul Bennewitz case and Richard Doty, it kind of made me reevaluate a lot of those witnesses. How many of those witnesses are there to spread the disinformation? You know, how many of those are actually solid witnesses that can report back things that they actually experienced or helped to cover up or witnessed, and then how many of them are just reading the story that was put in front of them because that's their job.
So you're saying they're too tricky, so much so that you're not going to believe any disclosure that they're going to put out?
Yeah. And so getting back to Disney, in 1955, I think maybe it was 56, sometime in the mid 50s, the studios at Disney were approached by a high-ranking member in the Air Force. And he wanted Disney to create this documentary to prepare the citizens of the United States for contact with aliens. And he said that he would provide all of this footage of actual aliens and actual UFOs, and this would all be part of the documentary, and it would be pushed out nationwide to prepare everyone for this inevitable occurrence. So they began all the prep work to do this. They wrote the script. They were doing everything for it. And when the time came to get the footage, the Air Force liaison told them they weren't getting the footage. It was never going to be released. And they shut down funding and backed out completely.
Neener.
Yeah. So this documentary was never made. But then in 1995, there was a weird series of events that took place involving Disney and UFO disclosure. So in 1995, Disney came out with this attraction called the Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter. You know, not extraterrestrial, it's extraterrestrial because it's scary. But it really was for a kid. It was. I saw it when I was there when I was 20, and it was. But anyway, I'll get to that. So in 95, this attraction was coming to Disney World, not Disneyland. It was part of Tomorrowland at Disney World, and to kind of market the ride, I guess, there was talk of putting out a UFO documentary. So they put together this documentary, and the documentary itself was done in a way, it's basically talking about aliens being real, and the UFOs are alien spacecrafts, and people are really being abducted. And what I mean by one-sided is it was people that were very much biased towards this idea, talking about things that they saw as evidence, but there was no dissenting opinion against this. So it's being put out kind of as like this stuff is real and we know it's real and this is the way things are type of thing. And only at the end, in the last 10 minutes, did they even talk about the new attraction coming. So this was being used to kind of promote the ride itself, and they kind of painted a negative picture about the aliens, saying that they're invading, that they're abducting us, they're, talking about all the scary and negative aspects about it. But the weird thing about this documentary was it came out in very select areas, and it was shown in one location at midnight, and then it was all in like not even big populated locations. Like for instance, they picked a small town that was a few dozen miles north of Orlando to broadcast it on their local radio station or their local TV station. And I can't remember the other places that broadcast, but it broadcast only a few places. Some places it was like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Some places it was in the middle of the night. Some places it was in the morning. It was always times when people were unlikely to watch it. And then it was just pulled from TV altogether. Now, this documentary kind of has two different sides to it. There's a side that says that this documentary was put out in only a select few places and only at weird times, because what is being shown in the documentary is 100% real, and it was a way to kind of do a soft disclosure to the masses.
See their reaction and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And see if from that, if they were to put this out on a nationwide scale, how people would react to it. The other side says that they only did a few test locations at odd times because the documentary was utter shit. And they pulled it because it was utter shit, and they didn't want people to associate this terrible documentary with this new attraction they had coming in.
Which is far more believable.
Yeah. And that documentary, even though it was pulled from TV, it was never released on video. Somebody did record it, and it is on YouTube. So you can look it up on YouTube. It's under an hour, because when it was on TV, it aired for an hour, but that was including commercials.
If I can find it, I'll put it in the show notes.
You'll be able to find it. It's just type in Disney UFO documentary.
Nice.
But it's a few like real experts, but then they get other questionable experts in. But it was made by this guy, Andrew Thomas. And Andrew Thomas was chosen for this project because he had a background in reality TV. He was one of the producers on the show Cops. But in addition to being experienced in reality TV, he was also one of the heads of special marketing for Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the movie.
Oh.
Yeah. So he had involvement in kind of both fields, I guess you want to say, but that's why they chose him to do the documentary. Now, if we just took that and left things there with the two documentaries, it would be weird. But there seems to be more to it than that. So in the end of January through February 1995, again around the same time that the attraction was going to be opening and this documentary was being aired, Disney World, the Disney company, they funded this huge UFO convention. It was to span 2 weeks, and they rented out well, I shouldn't say they rented since they own it, but they opened up this huge auditorium that would fit hundreds of people. They invited all of the top names at the time, like Bud Hopkins and George Knapp, and they had people who had been abducted. They had experts, and they paid for all of these people to fly in. They paid for their room and board for the 2 weeks. They paid for them to stay at the park and do whatever. Basically, all expenses paid. They had a 2-week vacation at Disney for this event. And then they never promoted it. It was never promoted anywhere, and they had the biggest names in the UFO field at the time doing seminars in front of 10 to 12 people because it was never promoted anywhere.
Whoa.
And keep in mind, this is before the internet really took off, so it's not like it was being posted on Facebook and the people that were there were posting on their Twitter pages. It was... everyone assumed that Disney was covering the promotion angle, and they got there and Disney did zero promotion. And Bud Hopkins got pissed off, and he left halfway through the first week and just took off. And that kind of adds another layer to it, I think. And there's different theories there as to what they were doing. Some people were saying that they held this conference to allow government agents that were researching the UFO phenomenon or in charge of covering it up or involved in whatever way, that they were there to get an idea of what was going on in the UFO field in that time period. So they could see how close to the truth people were, what people were currently believing, and maybe as a test to see if their disinformation had leaked in or if they were seeing through it. And others think that it was a way to just waste the time of the people in the field, and basically kind of bury them. They have this big convention plan, but you gotta like really think about the amount of money that Disney lost out on by doing that, because they lost any revenue they would have by renting out this convention hall. They lost money getting all of the participants there and giving them 2 weeks room and board at the resort, allowing them to be at the park, feeding them, paying their airfare. All that shit costs money, and it could have been easily recouped had they promoted it and got hundreds of people to show up and pay the ticket price to get in and go to this convention. But they didn't. They just had all these people there, and 10 people showed up, and that was that. It's very strange.
I think that was, I don't know, I think maybe Disney was made to put that on, and it was just a way to keep a tally, a roster of all these noisemakers in the UFO field, maybe.
I think more it was probably used as a gauge to test the disinformation campaign, just to see what ideas had seeped into the mainstream UFO community, and use that as. But even still, like that could have been done way easier by allowing people to come in, because then you can actually see how it's being taken in by the general public. You can get the ideas that are being passed around among attendees, as well as the ideas being presented by researchers in the field. So it still doesn't make sense. It's just very, very weird.
It is, especially if you've been to a convention. I mean, talking about Comic-Con, my first impression was like, holy shit, this is a giant commercial. You know, I go to look for old stuff, and there's not much old there. It's just everything's new. Even if it's something that's new, they're talking about what's coming out next year, and it's just a targeted marketing scheme. And that's conventions are perfect for that. And they could have figured out a lot more if they would have promoted that. And like you said, for me, with Disney, the money thing's crazy for them to not recoup any of that money. But maybe somebody had to have paid them in order to get these people together.
And the Disney does have ties with the military. So I don't know if you knew this or not, but Disney actually was behind the classic Pauly Shore movie In the Army Now. and they worked hand in hand with the United States Army to get things right. And really, a lot of that in Hollywood, there's a lot of people in the military that are used as like advisors for movies. Like any movie that involves the U.S. military, there was somebody from the government or from the military that was there to make sure things were done correctly, or would have acted as an advisor or an overseer to make sure that they were being presented in the most favorable way possible.
Yeah, no doubt. We all know about the famous story when they did that with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and the whole, what was it, the Reagan remark?
Yeah. That was E.T. when he made the remark.
Who was it?
Yeah, the one only a few people in this room are aware how real it really is.
Yikes.
Yeah, that was. But even that's kind of like a thing of legend at this point. Who's to say if that really happened?
Hopefully, I don't want my aliens to have glowy fingers and talk like babies.
Well, you prefer Yautja?
I'm down for a inter-species fist fight.
You think you could take one?
I will give one a run for its money. It will remember me.
I don't think it will. I'm pretty sure it would impale you and then use its throwy, disky thing to chop you into pieces.
Yep.
And that's about the extent of that.
It would be about 4 seconds. I'd get in some dumb, incorrect fighting stance, and then it would shoot its razor web at my face.
You'd go to tackle it, and it would just shoot its claws out of its hand and stab you in the face.
Oh, yeah. In its language, it just talks on its radio. It's like this idiot tried to pull a single leg on me, so I just gauntleted his head.
He tried to spear me. He's not Goldberg.
And yet some rugged detective from L.A. was able to take one down.
Yeah, well, I mean, no offense or anything, but you're no Danny Glover, Mateo.
Hell no, I'm not. No way. Well, I guess in closing, and kind of related
in
to...
closing, I'm too old for this shit.
Let's say if there is going to be some big disclosure thing, let's make it like a cartoon. They're just, for some reason, they've had to dump out everything. Let's let them redact a lot of stuff. But do you think there's going to be a bunch of ghost files that people are ignoring? They're just going to be looking at the UFO shit?
Well, I think that's a lot of... that's where the categorizing comes in and kind of works against actual real research or study, because people are looking at hauntings as being ghosts, and they're looking at UFOs as being aliens, and they're looking at Bigfoot as being an unknown animal in the woods, and all these cryptids are just unknown or previously extinct animals. And I think that they're missing what unifies them all together. And I don't think that these similarities are being missed by high-level researchers within the military or the government. I think that they are more interested in what's behind that than trying to figure out what planet the fucking UFO is from that they're seeing in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of evidence that these things are connected in some way, and even when things seem like they're very, very different, like you've got cases of possession. How can possession be even at all tied to aliens? But if you're thinking about it as being something that's connected, where we're dealing with otherworldly intelligences, maybe not even physical, and maybe not even of our plane of existence, whatever you want to call them, it doesn't matter. It's all a similar phenomenon that's occurring. It's just manifesting in different ways. And that's when people have ecstatic or religious experiences, I think that they're kind of tapping into what this is. And when they have interactions with spirits, in the case of mediums or people that have had visions of Mary or of angels or demons, I think that these are all things that are experienced outside of our reality or the reality that we are aware of. I mean, if you think about the breakthroughs that we've had in science, and we're aware of waves of light that the human eye can't even perceive. We discovered microwaves and X-rays, and we know about the different waves of light and different sounds that we can't hear. And we discover new things like that every day, not to mention the microscopic organisms that we discover and the things that we're learning about our universe regularly. There's you go back 100 years, we didn't know any of this shit. And you go ahead 100 years, we're going to know a lot more shit than we know now. And it's going to be stuff that we either couldn't conceive of, or things that we thought were crazy, that there's no possible way that's science fiction or that's fantasy. not reality. That's not the world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
But what if it is? And we just don't have an explanation for it. We don't know how to get it. We don't know how to view it or record it or even present evidence for it. I mean, think of all the theoretical things that go on in space, like with the dark matter and the expanding universe and the way time works. You know, these are all theoretical things that there's actual things to back this up. Like even the idea of a multidimensional universe is backed up in physics. There's actual science behind that possibility. So if we're looking at that possibility and that, what if that is a reality? Then who's to say that these things that we're experiencing that seem supernatural or otherworldly or paranormal aren't just part of the natural order of the universe or part of another dimension that just we're sometimes able to access, maybe due to certain ways the sun's rays hit the earth or the gravitational pull between planetary alignments. I don't know. And I don't think anybody knows. I think even the people high up that are researching this, that are aware of these connections, they don't know. We're so far out in the weeds with this at this point. We've got a lot of work to do. And I think splitting things up into different categories to be mocked individually is not constructive. And I think in a lot of ways that's intentional and it's part of the disclosure program. And again, I think it's for the protection of the military industrial complex, as well as to cover up what is still unknown. Because if you've got this thing out there, it's almost more comforting to think that the government knows about it, is aware of it, and is secretly hiding it, than the government has no fucking clue what it is.
Yeah.
And are covering it up because they don't know what it is. I think that's what would incite the real panic.
If they know about it, right now they're taking care of it.
Yeah. And I think that, control is the major thing with the government and any entity in power. It's all about control. And if you are able to display on a national scale that you don't have control over this situation, and even more that you don't even know what it is, then I think that is more likely to incite panic. Because why would the people listen to you if you can't even protect them? You can't tell them what this threat is. All you can say is, yeah, this shit is real, but we don't know what it is. We have no idea. That's going to freak people out, rather than saying we can neither confirm nor deny whether the existence of extraterrestrials is real.
Mm-hmm.
That allows us to be like, oh, well, they're covering, they know about the aliens. They're just covering up. They don't want the people to know. But I don't think they fucking have a clue. They don't know what the hell's going on. Just like we don't. MICKEYMOUSC.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.